Okay, so today we're diving into something I think really important. We're looking at the experiences of folks who don't fit neatly into the categories of black or white in America.
We've got some really fascinating stuff to unpack here. It seems like there are so many challenges and unique perspectives that kind of get missed when we only focus on the black-white dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, conversations around the black-white experience are incredibly important, but it feels like sometimes they can overshadow the very different situations that other racial and ethnic groups face.
That's exactly right. And so the big question we're exploring today is what are those specific forms of oppression that non-black and non-white individuals encounter? They kind of exist in this space between those two dominant cultures. And often it seems like their experiences just don't fit neatly into that kind of framework.
Right. It's like this whole other layer of complexity that we need to understand.
Exactly. And that's what we're hoping to bring to light today, to kind of give visibility to those experiences that are so often overlooked.
So let's jump right in. One of the first things that really jumped out at me was this idea of invisibility and erasure. It seems like when the conversation around race defaults to black and white, a significant portion of the population ends up feeling well unseen and unheard.
Yeah, absolutely. When the lens is so heavily focused on the black-white experience, it's easy for the unique challenges faced by, say, a Pacific Islander or an Indigenous American to be minimized or even completely ignored.
Right. It's like their realities just don't fit into that pre-existing narrative, so they end up getting pushed to the sidelines.
Exactly. And this feeling of being unseen can lead to this really intense pressure to just fit in somewhere to assimilate.
So from what I've read, it seems like non-black people of color often face this pressure to conform to either white or black cultural norms.
Yeah, and that can create this huge internal conflict, right?
Yeah.
It can potentially lead to people feeling disconnected from their own heritage and struggling to really figure out their own identity.
It sounds exhausting. It's like this constant balancing act of trying to belong somewhere.
It is. And then you layer on things like the model minority myth, particularly as it relates to Asian Americans.
Yeah, this is something that seems positive at first glance, but it actually has some pretty serious downsides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While on the surface, the model minority stereotype might seem like a compliment, it actually creates these incredibly unrealistic expectations.
And it can also be used to pit minority groups against each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
It suggests that some minorities are more successful or deserving than others, which is obviously not only untrue but actively harmful.
Right. It's like it creates this hierarchy within marginalized communities, which just further divides everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have to talk about this really difficult topic, which is internalized anti-Blackness within some non-Black POC communities.
Yeah, this is something that was really emphasized in the material we looked at. How does that manifest?
Well, it's this deeply damaging consequence of systemic racism, where those negative stereotypes and biases against Black people are so pervasive that they end up getting absorbed even within other marginalized communities.
And this internalized anti-Blackness actually ends up contributing to the broader problem of racism against Black Americans.
Sadly, it does. It's this vicious cycle that's incredibly difficult to break.
One thing that really struck me was how individuals in these groups are often navigating multiple layers of identity all at the same time. Like the text refers to this as complex intersectionality.
That's a great point. It's not just about race. For instance, a Muslim South Asian American woman might face discrimination based on her ethnicity, her religion, and her gender.
It's like all these different facets of her identity create a unique set of challenges that are different from what other minority groups might experience.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. And those multiple layers can really compound the discrimination they face.
It makes me think about how isolating it must be when your experiences don't align with those dominant narratives about race. Like the text mentioned this idea of exclusion from racial discourse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because their experiences don't fit neatly into that black-white binary non-black BOC, often feel left out of those crucial conversations about race and racism.
It's like their voices are unintentionally silenced or marginalized.
Exactly. And on top of all that, there's often a stigma within their own communities around actually talking about these experiences
Yeah.
and seeking help for the emotional impact.
Yeah, the material highlighted this cultural stigma that exists in some non-Black POC communities around discussions of mental health.
And that makes it even harder to cope with the emotional burden of all this.
So it's clear that there are a lot of challenges, but the text also outlines some key actions that non-Black POC can take to address these issues.
Right. The material emphasizes several important steps. First, acknowledging and challenging any internalized anti-Blackness. Then working to foster open and honest dialogues about race within their own communities.
It also talks about recognizing any privileges they might hold while simultaneously addressing their own unique challenges.
Yes, and finally building solidarity with other marginalized groups without minimizing the specific and historical struggles of Black Americans.
So to kind of wrap things up, it seems like what we're really seeing here is that the experiences of non-Black and non-white individuals in America aren't just some middle ground.
They're not. It's really a unique and multifaceted reality that requires us to look beyond that traditional black-white framework when we talk about race.
Exactly. To really understand the complexities of race in America, we have to move beyond that binary thinking.
Couldn't agree more. And I think this deep dive shows us that those overlapping experiences are so significant and they really warrant a deeper consideration.
Absolutely. So here's something I think is worth pondering. How might a more profound understanding of these often overlooked experiences lead us to a more comprehensive and ultimately effective approach to dismantling systemic racism in all its forms?
That's a great question, and one I think we all need to be asking ourselves.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been a really insightful conversation.